This week in CIST 2602, we'll look at Chapter 3, and we'll be talking about physical security. Now, a couple of things we'll start talking about in physical security is some key terms. Terms you should know is physical security is the protection of corporate assets from threats such as unauthorized entry, theft, or damage. Now, a couple of ways we'll look at protecting these is through prevention, detection, and recovery. Prevention is taking the steps necessary to avert unauthorized access, theft, damage, or other types of security breaches. Detection is identifying that a security breach has happened or is happening. And recovery is the process of returning a system to a functional state and repairing any damage. Some other key terms we'll talk about will be access list. Okay, access lists are a list of personnel who are authorized to enter a secure facility. Turnstile is a barrier that permits entry in only one direction. Double entry door, that's two doors that are locked from the outside, but they have crash bars on the inside that allow easy exits. A bollard are short, sturdy posts that are used to prevent a vehicle from crashing into a secure area. Some other key terms you will need to be aware of are smart cards. These are access cards that have encrypted access information. They can be contactless or require contact. A proximity card, they are also known as RFID cards. They are a subset of the smart cards. They use the 125 kilohertz frequency to communicate with proximity readers. And finally, biometric locks. They are locks that increase security by using fingerprints or iris scans. They reduce the threat of lost keys or cards. So first, we're going to talk about physical security and the need to build our security with defense in depth in mind. All right, so with defense in depth, with this, we're looking at the fact that we're going to have more than one type of defense set up, so that if one side fails, we'll have another side of the defense that will go into place. So we see on the screen here, this is an example of defense in depth. Okay, we have a building, we have cameras, that's one layer of defense. We have security guards. We may have a fence that's placed around the area, locks on the door. So each one of these are different security measures that are being built on the other, so that if one of these fails, so if the fence comes down, they still have the locks, the cameras are still there, the guards are still there. So when we have this set up, we should have it set into the sequence so that if a sequence fails, the next step is going to implement itself automatically. So we should deploy this in steps that we want to deter initial access attempts. We want to deny physical access, direct physical access. We want to be able to detect the intrusion and then delay the violator to allow for a response. So with our physical security, we were trying to slow down their access to the building or the facility. A couple of things that we do have to work with or work on is piggybacking and tailgating. Piggybacking is when a person with credentials gains access to a building, but then they allow others to follow them without requiring them to authenticate that they have the credentials to be in. Now, tailgating, that's where the authorized person is unaware that they've let someone else in. The way that we combat this is that we do training. Okay, we train our employees, we train our users on not to allow people to come in without showing the proper credentials. Another way we can perform physical security is by using man traps. This is a specialized entrance with two locking doors. They will create a security buffer zone between the two areas. So the way this works is that the user will enter one door, that door open, the user goes into another room. The door that was open then is closed and locked, and it locks that person in that room. And only then will the second door open and allow the user to, the person to exit through this area. Now, inter-facility access, there are a couple different ways we can use the man trap that we just looked at. We have locked doors, may have a key fobs, cards, some type of identification. Um, put signage up saying that authorized personnel only. One of the biggest things to keep with the inter-facility access is not to allow unauthorized people access to the building without an escort. So if you have third-party contractors coming in to a secure area, you want to make sure that somebody that is credentialed escorts them to their areas. Next, we'll talk about devices and network protection. Some definitions we'll look at this is a demilitarized zone. The DMZs provide enhanced security. It isolates your publicly accessible network from your privately accessible network. Another one is air gap. That's a security method that is physically isolates a portion of your network. These can be your computers, your server, small network of computers, and they are going to be isolated from the internet or other unsecured networks. And the cages are designed to block all electromagnetic emissions. Now, our first line of defense is protecting computer systems is control access to the location where the computers are located. Now, this can be through locks on the doors. You want to make sure that you place anything that's critical or sensitive devices, you have them in a locked room. And if you want to ensure good physical security, you'll keep the doors to that room locked as much as possible, especially when those rooms are not in use. You would have some other type of lock on there besides just keys, so you have a keypad or card reader to control access to that room. And also, don't leave the door ajar to adjust the temperature inside this room. You also want to use hardware locks. These prevent the theft of computers or the components. You want to make sure that you keep your servers and other devices inside locked cabinets or locked rooms. Use bolt or chain the workstations to the desk or any other type of stationary object to prevent the theft. You want to lock cases to prevent opening up devices and removing components. For laptops, you'll use a removable cable locks so that when those computers are left unattended in public areas, you can also use motion detectors that sound an alarm when a laptop is moved as well. Okay, the card sensors. So we've talked a little bit about access cards. These can be used to secure a facility, a room, or a cabinet. A couple of ways that they can be read is through a barcode reader that requires a barcode to be scanned using the infrared technology. You may have a magnetic stripe reader that requires a card to be swapped. Or you may be using the proximity card readers. That's using the RF, the radio frequency. So when that card becomes within a certain distance of that reader, the card is going to transmit the code to the reader. And these are all different types of locks that you can use to limit the access to secure facilities and rooms. Also, you want to make sure that you use secure data destruction. This is an important step. So any paperwork that contains sensitive information should be securely destroyed. That can be through burning the paper, shredding it, pulping, pulverizing, degazing. Third-party solutions are also available. Now, this is not only for just your hard copies on paper, but also your digital data. You want to make sure that these are all your data is secure and it is securely destroyed when it's no longer needed. It's also important to install physical security to protect the network, your core routers, different access points, your cables, the modem, servers, your host, your backup storages. All of that needs to be protected as well. Your network components, regardless of the size of your organization, needs to be in a secured room. and it needs to be in a secure room that only specific individuals have access to. You want to make sure that that room has some sort of access login as well, so that you know who's coming in and out of the room. So one solution may be using a key card, a locking mechanism that will track the time, the date, and who it was that opened the door. So this is something that can be used to be helpful when you're looking for the source of an attack. All right, so we talked about the Faraday cage. It's designed to block all electromagnetic emissions. These are also used to protect the attackers, protect against attackers who collect electronic emissions from electronic devices. This is a form of eavesdropping known as Van Eck phreaking. The demilitarized zone that we discussed, it provides enhanced security. It isolates your publicly accessible network from your privately accessible network. So what you're really doing is you're creating two separate networks while using a firewall. So we see an example here also of the air gap. This is the one that's not accessible by the internet. It's also important to protect your environmental controls. Some of the definitions that we will be looking at with these include the infrastructure. Now, your infrastructure refers to your system that support the site. This includes your power, your AC, your heating, your ventilation, gas, water. All of that is important to be protected. You can also create a cold aisle. That's created by having the front of the equipment face towards the center of an aisle. Now, what this does, the cold aisle faces air conditioner output ducts, while the hot aisle is having the back of the equipment face the aisle. In this case, they face the air conditioning duct returns. And that's all about getting the cooling and the airflow through your equipment. The electromagnetic interference, EMIs, these are caused by noise between a hot wire and the ground or neutral wire in a circuit. So we have this burst of energy is known as the EMPs, the electromagnetic pulse, and it can be disrupted to your signals in the data cable and your equipment. So to secure your environmental systems, you want to make sure that you also secure your hardware. You limit access to these. You use security cameras when you're securing your environmental systems. You also want to train your users and maintain the equipment, and also how to you also want to make sure that you maintain the environmental controls as well. So now we're going to look at one of your labs. So we were looking at lab 3.13. This is implementing physical security. Now in this lab, you've got a couple of things you have to do. You have to install two IP security cameras, and you want them in locations to record which employees access the key infrastructure. You see it says that the security camera should operate over the TCP/IP network. You're also going to install smart card key readers in appropriate locations. You're going to install a restricted access sign on the network closed door and install a visitor log on the lobby desk. Keep in mind, it does tell you that not all items on the shelf will be used. So when you start this lab, you'll get an outlook, an overview of this office building. And then to the left, you'll have your scenario that will tell you what you're to be doing in this lab. Now you'll see that on the shelf, you have different items broken down here. You've got options in here. First, I'm just going to show you how to install some stuff. I'm just going to drag some stuff in. So I can click. You see I've got two of these cameras. So these I can draw, and you'll see the area that's turning blue. That's places I can install these. These may not be the correct location. So if I want to put a camera on the desk, it says cannot connect. So this is going to limit me on this of where I can install that camera. So from here, I'm going to grab the security cameras. So I want to make sure that I'm putting the IP security camera. As it says in the instructions, I'm going to install the 2 IP security cameras. And I'm putting them in the appropriate location to record which employees access the key infrastructure. So the security cameras should operate over the TCP/IP network. So in here, I'm going to look, where is my area that I'm going to monitor? It's going to be this networking closet. So I'm going to drag these cameras into the networking closet. Let me zoom in here on this networking closet. And when you're working on these labs that give you the office, you can zoom in and out. So I've installed a camera. There we go. So I've got the camera installed inside of the closet. And I'm going to put one just outside the closet. Okay, so what this does, this allows that when the user goes into the closet, I can see what they're doing inside of the networking area and also who came in and out. Next, I'm going to install the smart card key readers. So we'll go to our door locks and see we have a proximity reader and a smart card reader. And I'm going to put this in the appropriate location to control access to key infrastructure. This is going to be dealing with my networking closet. So the key reader should be contactless and record more information than the card's ID. So from this, and if you click on details, it'll show you where they are installed, how they will look, and an overview of these items. So I'm going to zoom out because the places I'm going to put these, I'm going to put one on the outside. So I wanted to make sure that the users have to use this key to access the office. And then I'm going to put one outside the networking area. And next, I'm going to install the restricted access signs on the network closet door. So I'm just going to drag that to the network door. And finally, visitor logs, I'm going to place this on the front desk. Now, once I'm done with this, I can come up to Score Lab. So it gives me my score for the lab and tells me my status. And then in here, I've got details I can look at and see. So if I've missed something in here, I can click on the details and see what I have actually missed. And then it gives me an explanation for completing my lab. So chapter 3 deals with physical security, and your lab walks you through of how to install cameras, card readers, and also logging information on the desk, and then placing up restricted signs.